Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddler Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we are not an A-plus podcast, but we are going to be talking about Lisa getting an A today. And of course, joining me as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I'm good. Couldn't hold it back anymore. I tried. I was going to mute myself, but then I was like, you know what? Just lean into the skid here.
Do you need to take today off? Are you not feeling up for podcasting? Or you need to play some Crash Bandicoot or Dingo, whatever?
Well, honestly, you made that A positive comment earlier, and
that's a blood type, sir. I said A plus.
Well, no, I was going to say, last night at work, somebody made a joke about blood when I was testing my blood sugar, and I was like, yeah, and they're like, you really like that? I was like, yeah, the thing about blood is it really sucks. And I just looked at them, and they were like, what kind of joke are you trying to make? And I go, an A positive one. And then I walked out of the room. I just wanted to share that with the world.
Did your job fire you after that? Because I would have.
No, I actually tell a dad joke every day at the start of the day, and it makes everybody really hate me, and it also makes their day.
I would have never hired you.
Well, see, I got hired and then I started that, so I kind of worked my way through the system.
Yeah.
But like during like your little the grace period, I've been like, it's not working, pal. You got to go.
You gotta know. You know what? I'm not going to take comments from people from Sanger. This isn't working out. Let me throw it back to you so we can talk about our guest, the man, the myth, the dirty denominator himself. It is Miles.
Yep, and the other voice on the line that you've been hearing roasting Richie, which I'm so grateful for. Our guest today, stand-up comedian, as Richie said, we'll say is from Dallas, because that's where we all put on our resumes, but from Sanger, Texas. It is Zach Marmolejo. How are you today, Zach?
Hey guys, super excited to be here, make fun of some people, talk about The Simpsons. It's like a dream come true for me, really.
That's awesome, man. Hey, I'm excited to have you. You're another one of my friends that I've met at Dallas Comedy House, the now deceased Dallas Comedy House.
Man.
We've been talking about depressing things before we got on the line. We can keep it going here. But no, that place has brought a lot of really cool people into my life, and you are one of them. You're a stand-up comedian and a big-time Simpsons fan. I found out when we interned together, and your profile picture was a picture of Lisa Simpson.
It was the file photo of Homer with all the cigarettes in his mouth.
Oh, was it? I thought for some reason it was Lisa. It was a Simpsons picture for sure, though.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Yeah. It was another person. It was actually somebody I worked with at the bar that had the Lisa Simpson picture. You're absolutely
Lisa
right.
Homer. What's the difference?
Yeah, you know, Simpsons.
Same person, same brain type.
So, Zach, I usually start out by asking our guest, basically, what is like your earliest memory of The Simpsons, and when did it kind of become part of your life?
It's pretty much the same thing. I think the earliest memory of The Simpsons for me was, I've killed a lot of brain cells, so I only can go back to about 8 years old. But I remember growing up when I was in grade school, every weeknight, Fox had The Simpsons on from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And it was like a nightly ritual for me to watch it all throughout the week. And that's where I kind of just fell in love with them. That's like the earliest thing I can remember about it anyway.
Very cool. Yeah, we also used to do the double feature Simpsons like every single day, which was, man, what a time to be alive that was.
Yeah, it was like legit most things the thing I look forward to most days growing up.
I feel that, yeah, absolutely. So that's your earliest memory of The Simpsons. Did it pretty much stick immediately? Like, has it always been a part of your life ever since then?
Yeah, it pretty much has been always a part of my life. Well, there was probably a period there, like, when it got real shitty around, 2008, 2009, 2010, and on, where I didn't keep up with it, and I was in college, and I didn't really own any of the DVDs, so I kind of fell out with it. But then I quickly found my way back because, I couldn't stay away too long, you know?
100%. Yeah, we actually both kind of have that very similar backstory to an extent, where there was a time in our life in college where we kind of found ourselves doing other things that kept us from being stuck to the television.
Being poor.
Yeah. And I can actually remember the time when I was like, man, I should watch The Simpsons again. One night I went to the local gym in college, and I was running on the treadmill, and it was Sunday night, and they played it was a new Simpsons episode, and I was like, man, that wasn't half bad. I should watch The Simpsons some more, and then I fell right back into the spiral of The Simpsons.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's good.
I think the movie brought me back in for a little while there.
Yeah.
You'd kind of forgotten about it, and then the movie came out, and it was like, oh man, that was funny.
Yeah.
Well, and kind
I
of
forgot to know how to write.
That was actually right at the time too. Yeah, like where I wasn't really watching the show as well, so I think you might be right. It was like a big reminder, literally on the big screen. Like, oh yeah, remember this thing you love? Like it's still around. Yeah. Keep enjoying it. And
I definitely thought that movie was going to be a turd, and then I was really surprised at how well they made it. So.
And now
maybe we'll review that one.
There's a sequel at some point, but maybe. I know Maggie announced it at the end of the movie itself, but like the actual Simpsons writers have even briefly mentioned the idea that they're open to it.
I think they should kill him if they do the sequel. Like that should be the end of it all.
That's an interesting idea.
I think that's how it should end. I think that's the most fitting way, and make it the most depressing fucking movie you can ever make.
Homer's finally breakable.
Well, that is the stand-up comic in you, sir, and I do want to talk a little bit about that. A lot of the people that we have on the show, talk about how The Simpsons influenced their comedy. Would you say that watching that show was at all part of your decision to try doing comedy for yourself, or how did you get into stand-up?
I kind of fell ass backwards into it, as I do with most things in life. I kind of came across some extra money, and I'd always wanted to try stand-up. So I was like, I got this extra money now. Let me sign up for this class because I don't know how to break into this. So that's how I got started in it. I wouldn't say that it propelled me into it, but the humor and the style present in The Simpsons, especially in the early years, obviously, really helped form what I find funny, and it's definitely influenced my writing ever since.
Very cool. On that note, I do actually just want to take a minute and share some advice that you gave me that I just think was like so profound in so many ways. I'll be honest, when you first told me the advice, I was thinking like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But like as I got into stand-up myself, you were one of the people I reached out to for advice before I took the stage for the first time. And one of the things you told me was, no matter what, go up. Like if you get to the stage or you go to a mic, which this is all pre-COVID or obligatory pre-COVID announcement, but if you get to the room of comics and you start feeling like in your head or you don't feel good or like for whatever reason you start to like decide not to go up, like fuck that, just go up. And like, man, that has been truly some of the best advice I've gotten in stand-up. And honestly, I think that has applications in a lot of light. I don't think that's really exclusive to stand-up. I think that's something that there's a lot of people, and probably not just even performance arts, but in lots of situations where they start thinking about it and then decide, oh, no, I can't do it. Whereas if you just go, you're going to have, you'll end up being successful eventually. Even if you bomb, it'll still be a overall learning experience. So thank you for that advice.
Well, I'm really honored. I vaguely remember this conversation, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, it's really true, and I think I developed that because like I'm somebody who I overthink fucking everything in my life, and thanks anxiety disorder. So, but I tend to overthink everything, and with stand up, if you get in that room and then pre-COVID, if you get in there and you're like. And you're feeling nervous, and you're like, I'm not going to fucking do it. I don't want to fucking do this. But you'll start overthinking it. But then you just there's that moment when you're on the edge of the cliff, so to speak. You just got to fucking jump, man, and go up. And you're right. It really applies to a lot of things in life. And I think it does help you be successful in many different areas of your life, surprisingly.
Yeah, and again, even if it goes poorly, I think like it's worse to the build up you like put yourself through in your head.
Right.
It's almost like you're going through that trauma twice. Like,
yeah, because and then if you don't do it, then you fucking beat yourself up for weeks on end, and then you just make it worse. So it's like, don't be a pussy. Just fucking get up there.
There you go. Don't be a pussy.
Win
That's our motto for today.
I mean, jump off that bridge, you fucking weirdo.
I love it.
Sniff really, that other dog's butt.
What? All right, we have our limits to this advice. No, that's awesome. So, how long have you been? How long ago is it? How long have you been performing stand-up now?
Oh, I think my anniversary is this month. Actually, it's 4 years. No, 3 years. 3 years.
Well, congratulations, sir. You're a very funny person. I always used to very much enjoy catching your set. Whenever, especially like Dallas Comedy House, I still, dude. I know. I even complimented on you on this joke, and you like laughed in my face and like it's such a dumb joke. But I fucking love your Home Alone 2 joke. I think that is just one of the silliest, most fun things.
That has been like my greatest contribution to the comedy world, and because like literally, I mean, obviously I appreciate you liking it, but like almost everyone I talk to, they're like, man, I love that Home Alone joke. I'm like, all I do is describe the plot of the movie and say the title. Like I didn't do any writing for this joke. Literally, I just tell you the plot and I say the title.
Maybe it's like, the Homer Simpson in me that just appreciates the laziness of that joke.
I mean, you guys can't like talk about a joke to all of our listeners and then not give us the joke. That's a dirty joke.
You gotta check out Zach. You gotta go catch him on stage or find his comedy online if you post it.
Hey, Chris Manley, why don't you fly over to Texas to go see one stand-up joke real quick when the event's gonna get canceled?
It's a teaser, man. They gotta pay to see that. It's on my OnlyFans.
So. Perfect. All right, man. So stand-up comedy is your primary way of contributing to the comedy world, as you put it, which I love that. But we are here today to talk about The Simpsons, which I think we can fairly say has made a much larger contribution than any of us ever will. And in fact, so much so that we're not even in the top 20 Simpsons podcasts available to break down this episode for you, but we're going to do it anyway today.
You're never going to let that go, are you?
I'm never going to let that go, honestly. I'll be honest, it hurt when I first heard the news, but now I just think it's hilarious. Both that there's at least 20 others out there, and we're not in it. Like, I don't know. I find a sense of humor there, but regardless.
Stop reading clickbait articles.
Today we are discussing Lisa Gets an A, which originally aired on November 22nd, 1998. This episode featured the chalkboard gag, I Will Not Scream for Ice Cream, which was just a parody of the very popular commercials at the time where kids said they would scream for ice cream. Bart, the ultimate rebel, would not. And the couch gag on this one, the Simpsons run into their couches and like those hair dryer dealies that you would see at like a salon, all slide down on their heads and essentially swap their hairstyles out.
They had to make all of them big enough too to where like it could cover Marge's hair, which I thought was funny.
Yeah,
they were all like extra tall.
Yeah, you couldn't tell which character was getting her hair. That was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the opening joke on this one, where we basically come into church with Reverend Lovejoy finishing up his sermon about. It's basically it's like talking about condemning everyone to hell, which is just an ultimately funny thing in the Christian religion, especially when you see it parodied on a cartoon show. But Bart is actually, of course, complaining because he's starving, and he's like, Mom, can we go Catholic so we can at least get some communion waivers, some booze?
No one's going Catholic. 3 children's enough, thank you.
According to the... go ahead.
I just wanted to say real quick, because, I mean, obviously a lot of the later seasons go down the drain, but I truly think, and I wanted to ask you guys this, do you think season 10 is the last truly great season, or where's, like, your guys' cutoff point of, like, now it's taking a shit?
Sure. That's a question we get asked fairly commonly, and it's something that we have a hard time answering truthfully, and we kind of are taking you said earlier, don't be a pussy. We're totally pussing out on this answer for now, because what we've decided is that we're going to hold that judgment until we get there. So right now, we've only reviewed up through halfway through season 10, and I have been vocal that I think there have been a couple of episodes in season 10 early on that were a little bit of a dip, like an outlier from the rest of the quality.
Yeah.
But overall, I think that they've been very much on pace with, season 7 or 8 or 9, which have been largely considered the best seasons of the show.
It seems like, especially with this season, it flip-flops back and forth a lot. Like, you'll have, like, a couple really good episodes, and then you'll have, like, Homer being fucking Alec Baldwin's assistant.
See,
and it's
that
like,
was one that Richie really liked, and I was kind of like, I feel like this one's very dated. Like, it doesn't
but
fit,
it still
like,
had a lot of good
timelessness.
comedy in it.
Well, but also it's like a precursor to, like, the too many guest stars era, where it's like every fucking week they had to have another guest star.
Well,
and
it
that
also
was the
big shift in, like, the guest stars playing themselves as opposed to like when they have guest stars and they play a character. I think that's fantastic. I mean, especially like you go back to like Mr. Bergstrom with Dustin Hoffman, who not only was a character on the show, but he didn't even get credited as himself. Like Michael Jackson, same thing. I know that's a controversial one now, but ultimately he played
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, since you guys won't take a fucking stand, I will. This is truly the last great Simpsons season. And look out for my new podcast where I just only review the first 10 seasons constantly.
Over and over and over again.
Over and over and over again.
You'll be top 20 in no time, my friend.
I thought season 9 had a couple episodes that were kind of boring and dull, but I feel like that's true with every season. There's some that you don't like, and there's some that you really do like. And like we said from the get-go that we're going to do it week by week, and we're going to review it like it's with fresh eyes. We're not going to listen to the internet because we assume 3/4 of those people haven't actually watched the episodes. They're just jumping on the train and being trolls, and that's just ridiculous. So, like, why not have fun watching a show that you love and just see where it takes you?
Yeah, you don't really want to watch something just to shit on it.
Yeah, and plus we occasionally try to get people that like work on the show to be a part of it, and it's super awkward if like last week we talked about how much you suck.
Well, I think that's the main reason why you guys aren't in the top 20.
That's probably it right there.
You should just be fucking roasting these guys and hard grilling them. Like, what the fuck was this?
Every single animation mistake we'll just take a piss on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the hell were you people thinking with this? Like, you should be wholly ashamed of yourself. Krusty has a daughter? Ugh.
I love it. I do feel like when we get there, we will be honest whenever we get to an episode that we don't like. Like, I was pretty vocal about the first episode of this season, which I believe was Lard of the Dance, I think. Yeah, Lard of the Dance. I thought that episode was just meh at best, and I'm actually surprised that it's so highly rated on IMDb.
I actually agree with you because, like, I've been watching it back ever since the overlords at Disney put it on Disney Plus. And when I got to that, I remember that episode fondly. Like, I remember liking it, but then when I rewatched it again, I was like, that really wasn't. That was okay. It wasn't as good as I remember, though.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about that one as well.
Yeah,
but. This episode, I did want to point out on the commentary, they did mention that they actually got a little bit of kind of backlash for that communion joke. Mostly, though, just from Catholics and alcoholics. The commentary on this one did feature commentary by Mike Scully, Matt Groening, Ian Maxtone Graham, Yardley Smith, George Meyer, Ron Haig, and Mike Anderson. They did point out that, like, several of them didn't actually work on this episode, and actually throughout this season, a lot of the commentaries have been kind of just like a weird assortment of people talking about the episode, and they actually addressed it in this commentary these commentaries are actually being recorded for the season during the production of the Simpsons movie, which means that everybody is busy doing all sorts of extra stuff that they wouldn't normally be doing. And that's why these commentaries for this season have been a little weird, because they're literally like, okay, we're doing a commentary. Anybody in the building that wants to talk about this episode, come, jump on this track. And sometimes the people in the building like, well, I never worked on this, but I worked with somebody who did.
That could be a lot more fun. That would explain too, like, well, some weeks it's just a lot of them laughing together and having a good time, because I mean, they can offer a little bit of insight, but then it's just their take on what somebody else did. And they're not going to trash Simpsons writers that they have to talk to and see all the time, because that would be bad.
I want. That's the commentary track I want.
Some episodes actually do have multiple commentary tracks, very few and far between, but occasionally they do. And wouldn't that be the dream, like somewhere in like season 11 or 12, where there's that like that's the popular opinion, that like the tonal shift of the show takes a dive right there. And for what it's worth, even some of the Simpsons writers acknowledge that. Like Mike Reese was on our show, and he very much said, like, we've produced like 30 years of the show, and like 8 of them have been pretty good.
I mean, it's bound to happen. Like, and after 30 plus years, like, you're gonna obviously have some stinkers. Like, it's just, that's the way things go. But I mean, I think I still think there's a lot of great moments throughout.
100%.
No matter what.
There's still brilliant writers, brilliant comedians, and there's a lot of good mixed in the bad. I think it's just that it's one of those situations where they set the bar so high for themselves in that first decade of the show that it's almost like, even if they're producing a great show, it's just not a really great show anymore. And like that can, soil people's opinions.
A bad Simpsons episode's better than a lot of other shows. So
fair.
True.
And
I mean, like,
go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. Simpsons fans are just like wrestling fans. You can't really please them no matter what. Like,
yes,
100%.
They're gonna find something to bitch about that they didn't like. So
100%, man. Wrestling, like, I love wrestling, but I sometimes hate wrestling fans, dude. Like, they are the absolute worst. Just because you're right. They'll bitch about absolutely everything. Though I've been complaining about the product lately because it sucks with no crowd. But hey, what can you do?
You're one of them.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, but I think, not to get on a tangent, but I think what they have been doing has been okay with like the trainees and PC people and the crowd. I mean, it's something.
Oh no, you're one of them too. They're everywhere. It's spreading faster than COVID.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It is what it is.
So after church, they actually go... Homer actually announces it as a tradition, I believe. They go to basically what's like a Whole Foods. It's an Edie Gourmet's. And this is where we get the classic bit that I know Richie uses all the time. I've used it multiple times, and it's always just so funny to think about. Basically, if it has a toothpick in it at a grocery store, that means it's a free sample. So Homer brings his own toothpicks and is stabbing everything. Even things like I think he eats like an entire chicken. And my personal favorite, he actually stabs a beer in the side of it. So he essentially shotguns a beer from like the aisle.
Yeah. I wish I would have remembered this in college. Like, I would have never gone hungry ever.
I was going to say, why do you say that I did this? You and Mike, when we were all roommates, literally ate a chicken inside Walmart while waiting for the PS3 to come out. And didn't pay for it.
I meant made the joke. I mean, you're right. I actually lived the joke. Oh, man. But yeah, really, really fun stuff. Just like really the entire, even Lisa getting in, she's doing like soy, like I can't believe it's soy and stuff like that because of course she's a vegetarian, but just the whole family is embracing the idea of toothpicking food.
Yeah. It's a really beautiful family bonding. It's classic Simpsons family bonding, really.
To be fair, I actually used to do this at like Costco on Sundays because if you go to like Costco on the weekends, they have like mad samples everywhere, and you didn't even have to pay for lunch. Like you could just go and sample yourself through the store, buy like a 30-pack of corn dogs and leave or whatever. We actually get a quick appearance of the character Gavin and his mother, who is referred to as Range Rover Mom in the Simpsons Simpsons writers' room. And they said if you basically drive anywhere in LA for even a little while, you will very quickly realize why that character is named that. But Gavin also previously appeared in the episode Marge Be Not Proud, I believe it was, when Bart stole the video game. Bone Storm.
Bone Storm.
Yeah.
Get two. I don't want to share.
Yeah, this is probably the most punchable Simpsons character ever. Like,
that's a good title.
This fucking kid is way too entitled. Like,
he's definitely, and he represents. I know at least when I was growing up, there was at least one of him at the school. Like, probably more than one of him.
Oh, for sure. I could name names, but we won't do that because I have things planned for them.
And that would make it premeditated.
Exactly. And I would not pussy out and name names, but like if it's on tape, then there's a lot of evidence against me.
Yeah, it's not good. But again, nobody listens to this, so you'll be fine. Bart is actually has a really fun moment with one of the sample ladies. He's like, "Oh, so this product is known as fudge, huh?"
Yeah, just like it was last week.
Bart's like, "If you're going to be snippy, I'll just take my business elsewhere."
Takes the whole tray.
And finally, we get to kind of the catalyst for our A story plot, which is Homer is trying to get his favorite flavor, or find a flavor of ice cream that he likes, but they're all in the back, so he actually picks up Lisa and shoves her into the ice cream freezer so that she can, seize the ice cream flavor of choice.
Yeah. You gotta love a man willing to sacrifice his own daughter for ice cream.
It's a very Homer thing to do, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't believe he didn't want Cherry Garcia.
Yeah, and then being disgusted with the sherbet she brings out.
Ew. So this is, of course, going to lead to Lisa actually developing a little bit of a cold, which they do talk about on IMDb, and also just like a common misconception, but essentially, you don't actually catch a cold from being in cold weather. Like, that's not actually how it works. But it is a really funny moment for Homer, specifically, like Zach said, to, like, sacrifice his daughter's well-being just so he can get the good flavor.
Maybe she caught something from eating all that soy substitute product.
Possibly.
Oh.
They say the reason that people actually catch colds more often in the winter is because you're more bundled up, like, inside buildings, like, versus in, like, the summertime, spring, and fall, you're more likely to be more spread out or socially distanced, as they now refer to it. But
so that's where all these idiots got that idea that wearing their mask makes them sicker.
Yep, that's it. On the way out of the store, though, Homer sees one more thing he just can't quite resist, and it's actually the live lobster tank, which at first he actually takes his toothpick and tries to stab one. But the, like, clerk guy is there and reminds them that they're $8 a pound, sport.
$8 a pound times, say, 5 pounds is, let's see. How many pounds in a gallon? Oh, I can't afford that. Unless...
Homer actually comes up with a pretty smart idea here, I would think.
No, he doesn't. He's going to have to buy all the food to feed the damn thing. It's going to cost him even more money in the long run.
I didn't say he's going to execute the plan well. I said that it's not a bad idea for Homer to have. He gets the thought that you could buy a much smaller lobster and actually... basically fatten it up like you would, Hansel and Gretel or whatever style, and eat the profits.
It's a morbid thought. It's actually a really smart idea coming from Homer.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
honestly,
it's like way above his normal like intellect.
You can eat the profits.
I think this is probably my favorite Homer subplot ever. Easily. It's Pinchy.
It's a really good one, honestly. It's really awesome. Like a very funny idea. And again, Homer execute like even like the next scene we're gonna get to where he balances the saltwater tank. Like all of these moments are just so brilliantly Homer, and like I love the scene where he gets attached and it has like an adorable little cartoon face.
Yeah,
but then
and
he
then
puts
the
it in
horrible
Marge's
face.
face and it's a monster.
Like 8 spoiler alerts for everybody if you haven't seen this ever in
It's a
the
review
last
podcast.
25 years.
Yeah.
Zach, is that the reason you picked this episode? Is because of the Pinchy subplot?
It was one of the reasons. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was one. It's probably the major reason now that I think about it. But I mean, this subplot's so good. They essentially recycled it for the movie with Spider Pig. Am I wrong? I mean,
That's a good. I didn't make that connection until you
Terry
said it.
Plop-
But that's actually really funny that they more or less did the same thing.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, he just doesn't eat the pig, but I mean, he
Yeah.
probably
He
should
probably
have.
thought about it.
He definitely thought about it. Come on.
Since you brought it up, I will mention that the A story of this episode, the Lisa getting sick and skipping school, was actually pitched by Rich Appel, and the B story was actually pitched by Ron Haig, and they essentially just kind of felt like those two stories would interweave together nicely, and that's how this script was born, though it was actually written by Ian Maxtone Graham. So 3 big names that we hear a lot of, like attached to a lot of the best Simpsons episodes, came together to make this episode happen. And again, like we talked about next week, because we recorded out of order, but the episodes like where George Meyer and oh my god, I'm blanking. Yes, thanks, John Schwartzwelder. Like those two came together, and like I think like this season is still an era where you're getting a lot of these big time Simpsons creators that are still blending their ideas in a really, really nice way that creates this episode just flows so well. I watched it multiple times, and every time it just was a joy to watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably because the teacher was drinking.
But this one, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say this is definitely one of the best, like you said, flowing episodes. It's not like a pain to watch. I mean, it's so much fun, all of it.
Yeah, and sometimes the A story and B story are just so disconnected that it doesn't really. I mean, it's fine, it works, but like you're almost like feel like you're hopping back and forth. Whereas in this one, you never really do. Like you're just kind of weaving through the Simpsons' home, and it'll transition from like Lisa being sick to Homer's lobster escapades.
Yeah, and I mean it's so seamless. If like the lobster escapades were a little bit more, you can almost argue it's like 2 A plots.
Yeah, very fair too. They're so balanced that like one doesn't really outshine the other one.
Yeah, exactly.
When they do get home, though, that's where that whole opening section was just kind of the setup. This first scene at home, first of all, Homer is taking care of his lobster, and Lisa reminds him that it's a saltwater animal, but Homer's way ahead of her. He's got a thing of like house salt, like table salt, and he's like pouring it in. But then the fish that were in the tank start to float, and the lobster sinks, and he just keeps like balancing it until both the lobster and the fish are floating kind of half dead in the middle.
This aquarium that we've never seen before on this table that we'll never see again.
But it's also becoming quite clear that Lisa is coming down with something because she can't stop sneezing. And Marge even points down that, maybe we should get you some cold medicine.
No problem. I picked some up at the store.
And he pulls out a pack of cold tablets that have a toothpick stuck through it. It didn't take long to get there, but fantastic callback for that. We see that this lobster has put Homer into a really good mood because he actually woke up the next morning to make breakfast, and Marge is thrilled, like, just can't believe that her husband would do something so thoughtful.
Nothing's too good for my one and only.
And he immediately takes the skillet with the bacon and eggs on it and pours it into the aquarium.
It'd be scalding hot right then, too.
Oh, he's killed these animals multiple times already.
Well,
eat. You're nothing but skin and bones.
That would definitely cancel out his well-balanced salt levels inside.
No, dude, he got low-sodium bacon. It's fine.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Marge is still concerned, but Lisa, the A+ student that she is still like pushing on, trying to go to school. But Marge actually has to more or less tells her that she needs to stay home.
I'm afraid I can't allow that.
Mom, no, wait, we can make a deal.
You don't have anything I want.
But again, it's just kind of fun because this is literally the opposite of what Bart
Every
would be
other
doing,
child.
or any other child would be doing. So we see later Lisa's actually in bed watching a documentary on the seaweed shark on the Learning Channel. But Marge tells her that she should take it easy. Lisa's like, I'm hardly learning at all, Mom.
It's okay, she can play Dash Dingo.
Which is clearly a PlayStation parody. Both the way the system is drawn, it very much looks like a PlayStation 1. And Dash Dingo is a parody of Crash Bandicoot, which was actually one of Matt Groening's favorite games to play with his children. He actually talked about it on the commentary. Often he was more or less like removed from the gaming system because, according to his own words, he sucked at video games. But he actually got really good at Crash Bandicoot, and it was one of the games that he could play with his kids.
That makes a lot of sense.
All it is jumping and spinning.
Yeah,
so.
There's not a lot to it, but it's still a great game. I'm stoked for.
I didn't mean to make that sound like I'm shitting on Crash Bandicoot. I love Crash Bandicoot.
The remake was really good. I've been having fun with it, and I mean, it was one of my favorites back in. I had a PlayStation 1 back in the day, and it was definitely. I think I had it on a demo disc first, and it was.
Dude, me too. I had the same exact thing, and I would play the shit out of that demo disc all the time.
I think it was literally like the first level. So when I finally did get the game, like I knew every tiny secret detail of that first level.
Fuck yeah! My parents wouldn't buy it because we were just too poor. So I'm surprised I didn't have Dash Dingo.
One of the things that they actually talked about too during this sequence, which was kind of funny to think about, is the Simpsons themselves obviously never aged. Throughout 32 years of the show now, they've never aged, but the technology around them actually does. Like, they always have the same house phone, but, like, they've had older video game systems in the past, stuff that looks more like the Sega Genesis is what the Bone Storm console played on, and now they've upgraded to the PS1, and that actually happens a lot, apparently, they said, with technology in general. And even going back to, like, the episode we talked about, Lard of the Dance, I mean, they had cell phones in that episode. So it's funny to think about the world around The Simpsons does age, even though The Simpsons themselves do not.
Yeah, it's always weird to, like, catch, like, a later episode and they pull out an iPhone.
Yeah.
Or something similar, and I'm like, that doesn't seem right. Like,
something's wrong here. But Lisa does not immediately take to Dash Dingo. She's kind of like, this is dumb, whatever. Oh, I guess I'll go open this stupid box. But very clearly, she starts to get sucked into it pretty fast. To the point that later on, when Ralph comes by to give her homework, she is, like, glued to the TV, like, very much like you would assume Bart would be.
Yes, I'm just 4 power wands away from the anti-gravity lawsuit. Hope I don't run into that weird little troll.
Hi, Lisa.
Oh, pause!
So Lisa's trying to hide her, like, gaming addiction already, which is the first sign that you're an addict.
Oh, I think she was trying to pause it because Ralph was in between her and the TV.
Yeah, you're right. I read that incorrectly. You're completely right. She was just, like, so hooked to the game that, like, she didn't want to die or whatever, but... usually you would think that Lisa would be quite excited to have her homework, especially in the form of a book that they're supposed to read, because as we've seen in the past, that is very much Lisa's jam. But I think it's really neat that they did this really cool thing with Lisa in this episode where we talk about it fairly frequently, but they made sure to keep her a true-to-life 8-year-old girl. Like, yes, Lisa is the smartest Simpson, and she's clearly smarter than average, but at the end of the day, she's still an 8-year-old little girl, and pretty much anybody, if you get to, like, take the day off from school, it's hard to get back in the mindset of, like, oh yeah, I'm totally ready to go back. Like, if you can sit home and watch movies and play video games all day, especially as a kid, like, I never wanted to go back from a sick day.
Dude, I used to take weeks off of school. I mean, that explains a lot of reasons why I ended up in Sanger. But like, yeah, it was always the hardest thing. And I've definitely done what Lisa's did in this episode, where like faking an illness to continue playing video games at home.
100%, yeah.
Who hasn't?
Yeah, true.
I like to think I was better at it than Lisa was, because she didn't really do a good job selling it.
Yeah, like who the hell starts like give me a short make sure to bring me coffee and a short stack. Like that obviously will just
Would
give
it
you
kill
away
you to warm up the syrup? Ralph tells Lisa that their assignment is to read The Wind in the Willows, and he's like, it's about a toad and a badger and a mole. I drawed on mine. Is this my house?
No, you live in a different house.
And we get the choo 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 woohoo woo woo.
He drew a picture of him and Lisa on the cover of his.
And he said choo 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 choo, as in like I choose you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. Ralph, as simple as he seems, still has a thing for Lisa.
I think that Lisa also died during that time on the game.
Yeah, she ends up on a like cut screen, and it's like the enemy saying like, "I shall rule the Down Underverse."
We'll see about that, mate.
I didn't even realize it, but yeah, he makes the choo 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 noise because he's remembering the Lisa thing, and that's why he makes that. I never made that connection. I thought he was just being a moron like usual.
Ralph is very philosophical every time he speaks, so if he's saying choo choo choo, it means something different.
Yeah, this is true, but like it's like his memory works in waves where like things will hit him and he'll remember certain things. It's like Hodor, like he'll say that, but like nobody knows what it means, but it makes sense to Ralph.
100%. Yeah, I'm with you, and I agree too. Like a lot of times, what Ralph says, it does sound just ultimately dumb, but like there is like a weird profoundness to it.
Yeah.
Maybe he was chewing right past her in the grades because he's about to get a higher grade than her. It's metaphor, Miles.
We see Lisa is getting more and more engaged in her game to the point that, I mean, she's like actively talking to the screen. But she hears Marge come up, and she immediately, like, tries, like Zach was saying, like, to try to pretend you're sick or whatever. She gasps, she ducks under the blanket, and she tries to look sick. But Marge immediately sees, like, "Oh, sweetie, you look so much better. Ready to go back to school?"
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I could risk it.
No, you just stay put. And so far, Marge is very much like, oh, I trust Lisa. And even Bart shows a bit of jealousy here.
Wow, you didn't even feel her forehead. How do I get that kind of credibility?
With 8 years of scrupulous honesty.
Meh, not worth it.
Totally true.
We also missed the break in between these two scenes with Lisa where Homer's weighing himself with Punchy.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Together we weigh 300 pounds. According to my driver's license, I weigh 140 pounds. That means you weigh, 160 pounds. Oh, you're doing great.
Man, at $8 a pound, dude, he is going to enjoy those profits. But isn't it canon that Homer is 239? Isn't that his normal weight?
Yeah, but he would have a driver's license from when he got it. Like, a lot of people have, like, their really old driver's license.
No, that's fine. That's not my point. If he weighs 239, that still means that's a 61-pound lobster. Like, that's still, like, a ridiculously large lobster.
That's a fat fucking lobster.
Doesn't look that big.
No, it's definitely, that was just, like, a weird error. Or maybe Homer's just gained weight for this episode. But, like, I mean, that lobster probably weighs, like, 6 pounds at most. Like that's being like really generous. So yeah, Homer's obviously pushing the pounds.
As usual. I mean,
Lisa decides, or she convinces her mom that she needs one more day, in case the germs regroup. But that's when she kind of gives herself up, like we talked about earlier. As Zach said, like her order is really, really specific and very chipper. And again, she even asks her mom, or really in like a snide way, is like, "Would it kill you to heat up the syrup?"
Yeah, it's very. it's very dismissive, and I thought Lisa was a feminist. It's
weird from her in this one, but that's how much the video games have like rotted her brain.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense about my opinions on things then.
Dude, I think it's so funny that literally, like, I want to say it was like mid-March or maybe late February, they came out with like this study and they essentially labeled video game addiction as like a legitimate health issue. And then as soon as COVID hit, they like announced like video games are a wonderful way to deal with quarantine. Yeah, science is fun.
Yeah. Fucking nerds.
Lisa does make it back to school, and she's really nicely greeted by Miss Hoover, who's like, "Welcome back, Lisa. I trust you got the homework I assigned."
Yeah, Wind in the Willows? Oh yeah, Ralph brought it over.
Perfect. Then I won't need to excuse you from the test.
Test?
And Lisa actually has like a little fantasy where she sees the cover of Mr. Toad, or the cover of the book, and Mr. Toad even says to her in an Australian accent, "Game over, mate."
Game over, mate.
And that brings us to the end of the first act, where Lisa is in a very classic predicament. I know that happened to me a lot. I was also... I was probably too cocky a lot of times in school where, like, I was like, I don't need to read that. I could fake an assignment on that. And then, of course, like, you get a question and you're like, fuck, I don't know what any of this means.
I mean, I still do that to this day with, like, work emails.
Very cool.
I'm like, I don't need to read that to know what to do.
You can respond without having to read it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yes and no gets you a long way in life.
Yes.
I mean, yes, of course I meant no. Yeah. So Lisa's like straight up freaking out. I mean, she is trying to like talk herself to herself, like, you can bluff yourself through one test, but she doesn't know any of it, and she's immediately... Oh, there's a great line.
The questions.
Like, Mr. Toad has a red blank. Okay, skip that one. Mr. Blank needs a blank in order to blank his blank. Oh gosh, I'm in deep blank. She has a fantasy where she actually, or no, this is actually happening, where Miss Hoover announces the lowest...
it's a fantasy.
It is a fantasy. Where Miss Hoover announces the lowest grade in class, and Ralph is like, she's gonna say my name.
Lisa Simpson, 0.
And right then, Skinner comes in to introduce Lisa to the president of Harvard, but as soon as he sees the 0, he immediately dismisses her, telling her that naturally, Harvard's doors are now closed to you, but I guess I'll pass your file along too. Brown.
Brown. Heck of a school. Weren't you at Brown Auto?
Yep. Almost got tenure too. So, Ian Maxone Graham, the writer of this episode, actually attended Brown University. And also, during the production of this episode... after it was already written, but during the like animation process, the president of Brown University actually went and visited the Simpsons like production offices, and he didn't know what the joke was at that time, but he was just like very thrilled that they were being mentioned in the Simpsons. And something that the writers did say is pretty much across the board, like most companies are cool. But across, like, some of them we've talked about have had issues with The Simpsons, of course, but almost entirely the, like, Ivy League schools and, you know, the universities that they make fun of always get a kick out of being harassed by The Simpsons. Like, they actually think it's really funny. And I think that's pretty cool. I like when people can have a sense of humor about themselves.
I like the joke a lot. I wish it wasn't a fantasy and it was like canon that Otto actually went to an Ivy League school, because that seems like such a very like typical kind of Otto thing, like the bits and pieces of information we get about his life throughout like the years. Like that definitely seems like a great like canon idea for that.
He was really smart, and he went to Brown where he discovered weed and a guitar, and like the rest is history.
Yeah, like, I could totally see that being a part of, like, Otto's history. So I just wish it wasn't in the fantasy and it was true.
Maybe Lisa heard it while she was studying one day, and it actually is true, and it just crept into the back of her mind.
No.
There you go.
He studied horticulture.
Lisa's actually sleeping at her desk having a nightmare, and she, as we can now see her, she's basically just saying like, no, not brown, not brown. Miss Hoover actually wakes her up saying like, Lisa, you seem to be saying brown an awful lot. Are you okay?
Actually, I do feel a little feverish.
Don't worry about the test. Just get yourself a nice drink of water.
Whew.
Then come back and finish the test.
Gulp.
I like the little pause on that for sure.
Yeah. She's just pacing in the hallway like she's, a quick drink. I would have taken like a 2-minute drink in that hallway.
Well, she's more or less just trying to like figure out a plan. She's pacing in the hallway, like panicking, like, oh my God, I need a miracle, something. I need something to happen. And she even looks up and is like, come on, you owe me.
Sup, sis?
And Bart comes to save the day. Lisa points out that he should probably be in class himself, but he is showing off a little something he whipped up in shop. Mostly latex, and it's a dummy of himself sitting in the class, basically in Miss Krabappel's class.
There we go.
We eventually got
Words
there.
are hard.
I wish we could have seen the face on this thing, because just imagine like how terrifying it must be.
Well, and I love that, like, canonically, Miss Krabappel probably gives such little of a shit that, like, that would totally work on her. Like, yeah, whatever, Bart's just being Bart.
Yeah, you're right. She probably fully knows it's a doll, but she just doesn't even care. Like,
what the hell, guys? They used the same trick at the end of the episode with the creepy face, and it totally fools the comptroller.
The real comptroller.
Oh, you're right. He does hold up.
They will call back to this at the end of the episode without actually calling back.
Very smart.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So it will work from a distance.
So Bart actually takes his sister, weirdly enough, to the boys' bathroom. But Lisa's a little nervous. She's like, I can't go in there.
Relax. There's nothing here you didn't see when Dad boycotted pants.
Oh. Inside, though, we find that Nelson has actually set up an office in one of the stalls, complete with his, like, the top of the toilet is his filing cabinet, which I think is really funny.
Boys must wash hands.
And he's the salesman of the month. He's got a plaque and everything.
He took a picture.
But basically, Nelson is selling what he calls study aids. They're for novelty purposes only. Of course, if a few bad apples use them for cheating, he couldn't be held responsible. But of course, what he's actually selling is just the answers to tests, including the one Lisa is currently taking.
He literally goes teacher and subject, and Bart's like, Miss Hoover, Wind in the Willows, and it just takes him no time at all to find him. Very nice filing system.
You gotta love the way he words it too, because that's like I could totally hear that like in the real world. Like, well, technically, it's actually we sell them for this purpose. It's like those people who sell like water pipes. Like,
yes,
we all know what they're fucking for.
Yes,
it's the same thing.
If it
a few bad apples, use them for something
you can't
else.
say it in the store.
Yeah, exactly. Like.
Oh man, Lisa is though she still has her morals, so she's like, forget it. I'd rather get a 0.
Good for you, Lassie. I got a 0 once, and I ended up just fine.
As he's fishing out clogs from the toilet with his bare hands.
It's stuck down in there. Oh, and you got a friend, too.
Oh, and that's when Lisa decides that she is no longer morally opposed to study aids. This is one of the few times we actually do kind of a hard cut, like we talked about. For the most part, it's a pretty free-flowing episode where they're just like transitioning from room to room, but they do abruptly cut from this back to Homer at the house, who is talking to his delicious friend, and he tells him, you're going to be a free-range lobster. And he has an inflatable pool set up for him where he's feeding him chains of sausage links. Come on, boy, dig in. They'll give you a big, strong thorax. Why, you little? I'm sorry. It's because he actually
Homer
pinches.
Into the pool.
Yeah, there you go. He pinches and pulls Homer in, and Homer immediately has the same reaction he would to Bart, essentially with the choke. But immediately he backs off because he's like, "Oh, I can't stay mad at you."
Well, no, he says, Yeah, he's like, oh, he cowers like the boy. How could
Yeah.
And it's like, but so he doesn't hold back with an actual human being where he's like, no, I can fully go through and choke with him. But an animal, no, I can't do that.
It's just too cute.
Gotta draw the line.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's the same way that in like movies, like people will go to a horror movie and watch the most disturbing things possible happening to people. But like you put a dog in any sort of like turmoil for even a moment and people are like freaking out.
Or the same thing with the violence but the sex is off the table.
Sure, yeah. Back at the school, though, we see that the tests are now they've actually been graded. It's no longer a fantasy in Lisa's head, but she's passing out the test, and most of the students did quite well. Ralph is excited because I got a B.
No, Ralph, that's an F. I must have spilled some Kahlua. That's the only way she could grade those tests that fast, because what teacher do you know grades tests like right after you take them and immediately gives them back to you?
Well, but I mean, you got to figure probably outside of Lisa, how many people are actually passing those tests? Like, she's probably been well trained. I mean, she's been stuck in the same classroom for 30 years. Like,
she knows.
She has to know.
How many times has she given the same test?
Yeah.
I mean, Nelson has an answer key for it.
Yeah.
So, Lisa is being congratulated because she's actually broken her own record with an A+++.
I guess I'm just on a roll.
I like that Miss Hoover's like, actually, that's just 3 pluses. I spilt a little more Kahlua.
Some Drambuie.
Oh, Drambuie, yeah. She wipes off the paper and like licks her fingers too.
Looks happy. You never see Miss Hoover happy.
Yeah, she really had a moment there after looking at it.
Back at the Simpsons home, we actually see Marge is getting really excited about this lobster. At first, she was, against Homer's plan, but it seems like it's about to pay off. She's even like, "Oh, so plump and juicy. He's gonna boil up nicely."
Well, I guess this is it, old pal. This is your big day.
The water's boiling, Homer. Chuck him in. Come on, chuck him in.
Okay.
In the pot.
Oh.
And this is the scene we talked about earlier where Homer is like looking at his now friend who has this like adorable, almost as if it was like animated in The Little Mermaid. Like that's how like sweet, big old Disney eyes. But he points this out to Marge, like, look how sweet it is. And Marge just sees this like snapping monster who's trying to attack her.
Man, Homer would have broke when the noises started if you threw him in too.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually used to work at Papados, and we actually serve like live lobster. They'd take them out of the tank and cook them in the back. And honestly, it's a disturbing process to watch because like they take this living lobster, and the first thing they do is like stab it in the heart and like cut it open, and then they drop it in the pot, and it's like it literally sounds like it's screaming. It's actually just the steam going through the shell because the thing's already dead at that point, but it sounds like it's screaming for bloody murder. And that actually brings up a kind of an interesting little error. I don't even know if you could call it an error, but just something that doesn't make sense from like a real world perspective. Lobsters actually only turn red after you boil them. In the entire episode, Pinchy is red, but in real life, if he were alive, he would actually be almost more of like a blackish color.
That's true of all cartoons, though. Like all cartoon shows show lobsters as red for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just how we see them.
They probably just didn't have the right color in their color and pencil kit. That's a classic thing. About him looking horrific bit, like him when Homer looked at him and he looked all cute and stuff. That's something a lot of cartoons do that, like The Simpsons, you hardly ever see them do. Where like if a character is like tired, and then they'll do like a hard close up and it's very detailed. I always love bits like that, and it's so much fun to see. It gets me every fucking time. I don't know why. It's just because like you're so focused on the detail of how disgusting people are when like they're at their lowest.
No, I agree, and it's like the animation is impressive at how much detail they put into that lobster in two different scenes, essentially. But at the dinner table, it seems like it's time for Pinchy to be served, but for everybody's disappointment, Homer actually pulls out, instead of steamed lobster, it's steamed Maine cabbages.
Pardon me for asking, but where the hell's my stupid lobster?
Homer says that we're not eating Mr. Pinchy because he's part of the family now, and he actually has set Pinchy a chair, and he's like, hey, Pinchy, I made you some risotto.
What? You gotta be kidding me.
And even Lisa is complaining, which I love that Homer calls her out for.
Dad!
What's your problem, veggie? You don't even eat lobster.
No, but I enjoy the smell.
But Marge points out that lobster or not, they're still here to have a special dinner to celebrate Lisa getting her A+++. And Lisa's kind of mortified to see that she actually even found out about that and has the test itself to put up on the refrigerator.
Oh, I just turned up in the course of my daily rummaging. By the way, I oiled the hinge on your diary.
Yikes. Man, over-invasive mom there. It's interesting because every once in a while they'll make those jokes about Marge, but usually they don't make her seem quite that bad.
Well, I mean, it's like, what else does she have to live for? I mean, we've seen what happens to her, if the house cleans itself and stuff, she becomes a raging alcoholic. So, yeah. I mean, if this is what keeps her, or even if she goes to a casino, Marge has a lot of problems outside of a normal structure. She has a very addictive personality. So, if this is what's keeping her sane and keeping her not gambling and drinking, I'm all for it.
There you go. Just her rummaging problem.
The doctors say to have 2 glasses, but I just can't do it.
I love Homer's even aren't you proud of your big sister, Mr. Pinchy?
Ugh, I'm sick of everyone being so proud of me.
Homer's like, that's my girl. So Bart is trying to cheer Lisa up the next day. He's like, come on, Lisa, cheer up. You got a good grade without even reading the book. That's a win-win.
Can't you see the difference between earning something honestly and getting it by fraud?
I suppose, maybe, if, No, sorry. I thought I had it there for a second. Lisa at school is being by Nelson to be offered more test answers. This time it's for the fractions quiz. And Lisa is, pretty much disgusted by this. This is where she says the line Richie called out earlier, which is, I don't want your dirty denominators.
La-dee-da, Lady Cheaterly. Can I at least get you in my Rolodex?
Lisa, again, disgusted. She's like, absolutely not. I never cheated before, and I never will again, and I wish I hadn't gotten away with it.
Lisa Simpson, report to the principal's office to discuss the results of yesterday's test.
And it seems like maybe her wish might be granted, and as Nelson, scurries away, he's like, we never met!
I think Lisa's biggest mistake was, you can clearly tell she's never cheated on anything in her life, but when you cheat, you don't word for word it. You gotta get a couple wrong. That way you don't feel that horrible, and then nobody's suspicious. That was her main problem.
She got the bonus question right at the bottom of the test where it got cut off. So,
yeah.
So she didn't even read it.
And when they get to the principal's office, I love that immediately you see that there's this giant scoreboard in the office with them. And instead of being upset with Lisa, he's actually
surprised and saddened.
Oh. Saddened's not the right word.
Not saddened. Oh yes, delighted.
He's delighted to report that Lisa's grade brought up the entire school's GPA to the state's minimum standard. So now they get the basic assistance grant. And he's actively playing with the sound, the scoreboard, and making sound effects as it happened.
And it finally breaks Lisa.
And Lisa can't handle it anymore. She has to confess, and she tells Skinner that she cheated. To which she's like, "Stop it! I cheated! I cheated!"
Lisa, what are you trying to say?
And Lisa's confession actually brings us to the end of our second act. And we open up with our final act, still in the principal's office. Skinner's finally coming to accept that you cheated? Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. Why didn't Miss Hoover tell me?
She doesn't know. You're the only one I've told.
And that's when Skinner realizes that, well, you could make the argument that there's really no problem.
But what I did was wrong.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. But as long as we handle this in a mature and above all quiet manner, we still get that grant money.
I gotta think this is 100% how almost any school, impoverished school especially, would react to this. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
If they were going to get grant money out of it or any kind of money, and they found out the person cheated, they'd be like, well, we can just sweep that under the rug. We don't really need to acknowledge that.
Well, I mean, they're literally making teachers go to their classrooms right now to teach from a distance just so they can get federal money because the government won't get them any other way.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You're 100% right. They would absolutely support this. And Lisa even immediately tries to go above Skinner's head and tell Super Nintendo Chalmers. And immediately he's even just like, oh, well, we could talk about that. It's clear he's also going to tell her to shove it under the rug.
Skinner! I am outraged that you kept this from me. You were supposed to call me as soon as the new scoreboard was in.
You play us a little music as we walk out.
a little walking music for us.
So again, Chalmers and Skinner are now explaining to Lisa that they, really need that money and all of the good things that it could do. They visit Ralph in the computer lab, who is learning.
Hold up. They first tease where Springfield's at.
Oh, that's right.
What a dump.
Talk about this. Yeah, the school had to move from Missouri to its current location.
Yeah.
That's why we had to move. There's that little gas, too. And, I think they even kind of look into the camera a little bit, or in the fourth wall.
Yeah. It was a nice little wink and nod for all of us.
For sure. I personally love the tetherball pole because that was one of my favorite games in the schoolyard. But Nelson and Milhouse are playing with a chain attached to a cinder block. And it goes as well as you might expect it to. Milhouse's face and glasses get broken.
Which doesn't make sense because it's going to pan inside to Miss Krabappel teaching. So why are two of her students outside playing when she's teaching her class?
Skipping school, or I don't know.
But they're skipping school to play with cinder block.
To play tetherball. They're still playing from recess. Their game hasn't finished yet.
Maybe they're in gym.
Oh, there you go.
But Miss Krabappel's teaching the rest of their classmates.
Is she really though, Richie? Because she's having to use sponsored. She's having to use sponsored periodic tables that are brought to you by Oscar Mayer. She's like, who can tell me the atomic weight of polonium?
Oh, delicious?
Correct. I would have also accepted Snacktacular.
And probably most of those kids in the classroom were papier-mâché latex kids Bart made. He probably made one for everybody.
That's how Nelson and Milhouse did it. They were just using their surrogates.
See, that's an acceptable answer. Thank you, Zach.
I also believe this is the first time Ralph says, or this Super Nintendo Chalmers, or has he said that before and I'm forgetting?
Oh, this is the time.
The time, yeah.
Yeah, this is, and I was like, is this the most iconic Ralph moment?
It's definitely up there.
I think this is the one that a lot of people probably remember most outside of the Choo Choo Choose You and the heart ripping in half. I think, because even if you talk to non-hardcore fans who watched growing up, this is one of the number one things they remember mostly is this one line.
I think it's definitely probably in the top 5 Ralph quotes.
Yeah, for sure.
Take a pass on it, Miles.
I love even Gil is getting in on trying to convince Lisa. Gil's actually trying to sell the school the computers. They've only got one currently, and when Gil's trying to get them to buy more, they're like, I don't know. I'm not even sure we can afford this one. What do you say, Lisa?
What do you say, Lisa? Will you keep our little secret for the good of your classmates and your school?
Lisa decides that she doesn't really have much of a choice, and Gil is immediately thankful. He's like, "Oh, thank God! Now let's talk about rust proofing. These Colecos, they rust up shut up, Gil. Just close the deal. Close the deal."
I love how pathetic Gil is every time we see him, and it's that perfect that salesman on the edge, man.
And I believe this is the first time we've seen Gil since Phil Hartman's passing, where this is where he becomes definitely more of a staple character. Because in the past, they would often, use Lionel Hutz or Troy McClure to do these little cutaway types things. So Gil becomes that kind of stand-in.
Yeah,
I definitely think it's good that they didn't try to do exactly another Lionel Hutz too, because Lionel Hutz definitely has moments where he's like Gil, but I feel like because Phil Hartman was such a big personality, they couldn't try to outdo that. They just had to go in a slightly different direction. So just making him super pathetic is, in a weird way, the right choice to do it, to where they're not trying to outdo themselves already.
Yeah, definitely you don't want to try to replace Phil. I think that's
exactly
a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that would have been a really big mistake. So, and it gives old Gil some time to shine.
We actually see that Marge and Homer are taking Pinchy for a walk on the beach, where they have a really fun encounter with McAllister.
He's dragging Pinchy.
Yeah. And he's introducing him to a hermit crab. He's like, "Oh, look, a new pal for you." And the crab immediately pinches at him.
Hey, you don't have to take that from no punk ass crab. What's wrong with you?
And this is where Captain McAllister walks up and he's like, "Yar, it's not his fault he's a sissy. Someone's been coddling him."
And he looks at Marge.
Marge is immediately like, "Don't look at me. I wanted to eat him."
Sorry, it's usually the mother. I run a small academy for lobsters like this one. We stress tough love, daily chores, and the like.
No, we're not sending the lobster away to some snobby boarding school.
Yar, I understand. It's hard to let go. Tell me this then. Do you have any spare change?
Apparently his lobster boarding school isn't going so well.
Who would have thought, right? It's probably after the restaurant closed down.
Yeah,
he really hit hard times. Yeah,
one customer slipped right through my fingers.
We see that back at the elementary school, Lisa is still struggling with her guilt, but Skinner and Chalmers and the whole rest of the school are getting ready for a presentation of the grant money from the comptroller. Everyone's real excited, and they actually have Lisa go up to accept the check from Comptroller Atkins. But when Lisa gets up there, she starts to say thank you and how she knows that this giant check is very important to everyone, but what's even more important is the truth. Because after all, education is the search for truth.
No, it isn't. Don't listen to her. She's out of her mind.
And Lisa goes on to confess that she stole it and that they don't deserve it. But lo and behold, Comptroller Atkins actually is impressed with Lisa. Even after the rest of the crowd boos at her, he goes up and explains, don't you see that this is what education is all about and how much courage it would take for somebody to do this? And where he comes from, Canada, they reward courage. So
how dare you condemn this girl? Who among you can honestly say you've never cheated on your wives or your husbands?
And everybody in town is just like, yeah, okay.
During that scene, today was the first time I noticed, but Kirk is staring daggers at Luann over.
I didn't notice that. That's hilarious.
Catch that either.
Yeah, it's on the bottom of the screen. Kirk is just staring daggers at her.
So the comptroller agrees to give the check to the school, and the Simpsons actually like carry Lisa out on her shoulders, though Marge is still like congratulating her for having the highest grade in the class.
The highest grade.
Bart immediately locks the door behind them and shouts that she's gone, and that we see that the comptroller, who we thought was the comptroller, pulls off his mask, revealing that it was Otto all along.
Oh man, acting is tough. I'll be in my trailer.
Good old predictable Lisa. I knew her conscience was a ticking time bomb.
Heads up! Here comes the real comptroller.
So they had basically just put on a show to get Lisa out of the way, and the real comptroller is there to give them enough money to put a light bulb in every classroom and a high definition TV for the teacher's lounge.
I wonder if like this swerve was them making fun of the principal and the pauper controversy from last season, because like when that came out, everybody was like, "Man, that episode was really fucking dumb." And they kind of do the exact same thing here, in a way. So I wonder if this was like them a little bit poking fun at that. Yeah, poking fun at it, like just somehow. That's what it reminded me of, anyway.
Then I do like, as Richie pointed out too, in the back of the room, they actually call back to Bart's like latex doll making skills, because he's actually like puppeteering as Atkins is like, I wanted this little girl to come up and talk. Bart's like holding up her puppet and like shaking her head no from the back of the room.
Well, how about that? Smart and modest. Well, I should be going now. These giant checks don't hand themselves out.
And this is one of my favorite jokes right here, when Skinner is like, okay, people, let's have a round of applause for the real comptroller. And Atkins says, but Chalmers gives Skinner like the worst look, just like, you fucking idiot. And he even says idiot under his breath. Skinner's like, come on, guys, I know a liquor store where we can cash this right now.
It's like the whole town's gonna go drink this check away in like 2 seconds.
And it's legitimately like, when they say giant check, it's not just referring to the dollar amount on the like check itself, but it's literally one of those giant presentation checks.
Oh shit, I didn't even think to look. Could you actually see the amount that was on the check? I didn't even think to look to try to look at
it's
that.
It's actually written on IMDb. It's $250,000.
Ooh, yeah. That's a lot of liquor.
Not for Springfieldians.
Yeah, it was seriously.
Back at the Simpsons house, Marge is upset to find that that there's just muddy prints all over her kitchen, and Homer is like, "Oh, sorry, Marge. Pinchy got all dirty in the yard chasing birds, but don't worry, I put him in a nice hot bath."
Yeah.
Hey, what smells so good?
And you can kind of see Homer's realization that he's accidentally cooking his friend, like wipe over his face as he screams and runs up the stairs. And the end of the episode is largely ad-libbed by Dan Castellaneta, who is sitting there at the dinner table crying as he's eating his lobster, and he's like, "Can you pass the butter? Oh man, this is so good."
Are you going to eat that all by yourself?
Yes, Pinchy would have wanted it that way. My dear, sweet Pinchy. Oh, no more pain. But yeah, Dan
snaps him in half while he's saying that.
Yeah, and sucks on the head at one point too.
I wish Pinchy were here to enjoy this.
Oh, Pinchy.
Man, sad and happy Homer is like some of my favorite stuff. Like even like that one time when Aunt Eustace died, and they inherited the house, and he's in the room crying. He's like, and that is just that reminded me a lot of that. And it's just like it's such a joy to see him so sad yet so happy.
I agree, and I think also when they let Dan Castellaneta just kind of do some ad-libbing, he's so good at it. Like he is Homer. I mean, he just becomes that character, and it's so fun to hear that happen, essentially, just where that was just Dan in a room, probably eating, or maybe not, he probably just makes the eating noises, but he, just got to go wild for a bit. And that actually brings us to the end of our episode. Lisa gets an A. Zach, was there anything else in general that you wanted to say either about The Simpsons or about this episode before we call it a day?
No, nothing that I could think of. This is like we said, this is a really great episode, especially a later season episode. So everybody should watch it.
Agreed. Richie, what about you, sir?
Zach, your idea of them like reusing the Principal and the Pauper is definitely an interesting idea, but I also think that it's a good twist on like a normal sitcom style ending, because in a normal sitcom, Lisa would have said she cheated and the school wouldn't have got the grant, but they would have found some other way to get income by like doing car washes or something, and it would have been like a nice sweet little tied up bow that you're like, oh, that's lame and predictable. But I like that they actually did this whole setup knowing that Lisa was going to crack under the pressure and reveal the truth. And like, that's just something that only the Simpsons could do up through this time in our lives, I feel like. So I like that they took the normal ending and still found a way to twist it into a Simpsons version of that, which makes it a lot more enjoyable from a viewer standpoint. But other than that, I just want to say, still to this day, I do not know what a state comptroller does.
Nobody does.
They hand out big checks all day.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, of course. It was right in front of me the whole time.
They basically, I think they work for Publishers Clearinghouse. I have one more fun fact I'd like to share, and it's actually from IMDb as well. So the French word for lobster is actually spelled H-O-M-A-R-D, and the D is silent, so it's pronounced homar. In the French version of this episode, they actually changed the name of the lobster from Pinchy to Homar. So there's like an extra joke in the French version where there's like a pun that Homer Simpson is essentially adopted Homar Simpson.
And he's eating Homar.
Yeah, I just thought that was really fun. And I thought this episode was really fun. And Zach, I'm so glad you were able to join us today and make it even more fun. It was a pleasure talking to you, sir. You're clearly a huge fan of the show, and it's great to hear your insight. Thank you so much for joining us. And is there anywhere that you want to plug, any social media or shows or anything that you would like to share with the fine people that are listening to this show?
I'm not doing any shows right now, but if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Clown Baby Bacon. I dispel a lot of Simpsons memes on there and a lot of sad stuff. So if that's your lane, fucking hop on it and follow me. But yeah, this was a joy, man. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and this was a lot of fun.
Oh, dude, we'd love to have you back on in the future. We'll make that happen down the road. But thank you so much for being here.
Fuck yeah, man. Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone who's downloaded or listened to this show. We always appreciate it. Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, especially our newest one, which was Robert Martin. Thank you so much for being a part of the Patreon squad there. And Richie, where can they follow us online?
You can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. You can follow me at TheWiz_Kid23. But more important than both of those things combined, follow our show at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. Pretty much on every social media platform. If you search for Best Darn Diddly, you're getting Miles and Richie all up in your face.
And make sure you come back again next week for an episode. I'm pretty sure we already, we definitely already reviewed it. We reviewed it last week out of order, and I think it went well. So it should be a nice time. Come back and watch our review of Homer Simpson in Kidney Trouble.
Okay, listeners. Now I want all of you to stay tuned and listen as the real Mr. Most Days Off gets on to do the next podcast.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.